our congressman for this area to talk about various issues. Congressman Randy Weber is here. We don't always get congressmen, so we're pretty pleased to have you.
Thank you. It's good to be here, Kevin.
Thank you very much. I know you come back to the district quite often, and you've got a wide district, so it's great having you talk to us. Tell us about, and we start off with this matter because so much has happened in recent years with gun violence, and in particular maybe the most heartbreaking of the gun violence happening sometimes in our schools. The president has often put forth this ideology of his that guns need to be restricted and or taken away from Americans in various ways. I think it's fair to say many of his policies have worked towards this notion of restricting how Americans have guns. Your policy and a bill that you put forth would do quite the opposite. Right. Explain what has been come to known as the PASS Act.
Right. Well, thank you, Kevin. The PASS Act is a bill that I filed that actually does away with federal prohibitions from guns in school zones. And let me just parenthetically say, for the president to blame the violence on the guns is like blaming pornography on computers, or computers for pornography. Let's put it that way. And so we recognize it's what people do with it, and many people will know that most of the mass shootings going back 30, 40 years have all happened in gun-free zones. Apparently the criminals can't read the signs, you know. Two of those have not. I forget, one of them is the shooting that got Gabby Gifford there in Arizona. Was it 4 years ago now?
Right.
Time escapes me. And I forget the other one, three and above. And so we would recognize that when you prohibit law-abiding citizens from carrying guns, only the criminals have guns. The PASS Act that you refer to, we filed last week, Protect Against School Shootings, PASS, says that if you are a retired police officer, if you are an off-duty police officer, or if you are a CHL, a concealed handgun licensee holder, then you are not violating federal law to carry in a school zone. Now, we do not preempt state laws. In other words, if a state wants to preclude you from carrying in a school zone, they still have that authority. All we're saying is that it is not a violation of federal law for a law-abiding citizen to now be able to carry in a school zone. That's what the PASS Act does.
At the heart of the bill seems to be this question of whether there is a defense against the right to bear arms in this country, as has been a part of the debate for many, many years, is that Americans have the right to protect themselves. Sure. And I think the founders thought we had the right to protect ourselves in our homes. And this would extend this matter to our public schools. And when you look at the PASS Act, it seems to be a kind of way of saying we have a right to stop these Newtown Columbine-style shootings by having a defense in place. Was that the nugget of the bill in your view?
Well, absolutely, and there's situations that would prove that that's correct. The two guys that came up to Garland, Texas, a year and a half ago because they had a cartoon. They were having cartoons made of the Prophet Muhammad, and these two Islamic radicals came up there set to kill people. And of course, you know, they basically got met with the ideology, welcome to Texas, now let us introduce you to the Second Amendment. Right. And they killed both of them. And so otherwise, that would have been a pretty bad mass shooting in and of itself. Texans Americans have the right to protect themselves. I tell people all the time that the Constitution doesn't give us the right to bear arms. It actually, God gives us, that's a God-given inalienable right. And the Constitution says the government shall not infringe, shall not take it away. So absolutely, that's the premise of the bill.
We don't talk about Garland as being a San Bernardino. Right. For that reason.
That's right. But for that reason, Garland might have made the headlines just as much as San Bernardino did.
while the House remains in the control of the Republicans, there are a great many Democrats who would fight and have fought in recent years to restrict the use of guns. How do you gauge the potential success for passage of the bill? What do you see right now?
Well, the newspaper, Paul Ryan, has said we're going to go by regular order, that he is going to let things move forward in the committee, and he's even announced at the GOP conference that you don't have to be a member of the committee. You can go in, you can weigh in on those committees. They're encouraging that. It's going to be more working hours, which I'm good with. I've told the leadership, hey, if we got to stay there on the weekends and get our job done, let's do that. So we'll get to move it hopefully over into a committee and get to have that robust conversation. Now, how many Democrats would be in favor of it? I would have to say that I would hope most of the Texas Democrats, being from Texas, would not be objecting to the bill. Over on the Senate side might be a different thing. You might see a Harry Reid or somebody try to hold it up in order to protect the president. But I think all in all, on the House side, I'm hoping I've got good hopes for it.
We'll talk about committee assignments. We'll talk about the replacement for, even though it happens, it's confirmed over in the Senate. We'll talk about the replacement for Justice Scalia and much more when Southeast Texas Weekly continues. Stay with us.
Players and coaches agree. Youth baseball is booming in Southeast Texas. Coaches say competition is increasing, and each year more kids try out for select teams.
And the baseball talent in this area is incredible. Select baseball has really exploded, and it's not a fad. It's only going to get bigger.
So what's behind the rising number of ball players? And find out why families say it's worth the long hours and thousands of dollars. Baseball Boom, Tuesday night during 12 News at 6 on KBMT ABC. 12 News. Expect more.
KBMT salutes our first responders. This month, the Beaumont PD Citizens Advisory Board Good Deed recognition goes to Officer Mike Nixon. A 12-year veteran of the force, Officer Nixon has dedicated his career to helping victims of sexual abuse in Southeast Texas. In his free time, Officer Nixon participates in public outreach to educate the community about autism. KBMT and the Beaumont PD Citizens Advisory Board salute you, Officer Mike Nixon, for your good deed.
Welcome back to Southeast Texas Weekly. Thanks for being with us. Let's continue to talk politics with Congressman Randy Weber. Let me get to some unpleasant business here before we go into some of these other issues. Your Democratic opponent in the 14th Congressional District, Michael Cole, was accused of writing hot checks over in Orange County. React to the news that has emerged already, please.
We heard that, Kevin. Of course, it's coming in bits and pieces, so we don't know all that means, except that he's been accused of writing bad checks.
$27,000, the amount of money that the plaintiffs in this case say that they are owed.
Certainly, I'm guessing, I'm not a lawyer, but I would imagine that certainly is that felony level. There's a level of certain checks. You get above that, it's a felony. And, you know, we don't wish any ill on his family, obviously, and we know this is unfolding. And so he's presumed innocent, you know, until this is all kind of ferreted out, as it were. And but, you know, you have to think, if the guy is, of course, found by a court or adjudicated guilty of writing hot checks, you know, I just have to say that's not a Southeast Texas family value. And we would hope the voters would say at that point, you know, they want somebody to make decisions for you that hasn't exhibited that bad judgment. Not saying he did, just saying if it works out that he did, then of course that's a pretty tough one.
A contract dispute in the Michael Cole case.
Right.
Justice Scalia, with his untimely and sudden passing, I guess me as a journalist, I'm shocked and surprised there wasn't an autopsy in that case, regardless of how that turned out. Who should, well, put it like this. I guess the question becomes, doesn't the president have every right to nominate a person, even though he's in his last 10 months in office, to replace Justice Scalia?
Well, absolutely, under the Constitution, and I, too, like you, are kind of shocked there wasn't an autopsy. Of course, I get that it was a rural area and that those instances of being that close to hospital, it didn't lend itself to that kind of convenience, and whoever was at his inquest, I think they called it, and decided to pronounce him dead, apparently made that decision. It was natural causes. That will probably always be lingering, by the way, but to your question, yes, the president does have that right, and I, for one, hope that the Senate takes its responsibility very seriously. And if he puts forth a nominee, they consider that nominee. I think they owe the American public at least a chance, the process of looking at. Now, am I saying that they have to approve that nominee? Absolutely not. They're not a rubber stamp. But I think they need to do their job and consider.
The Republicans should be obstructionists in the United States Senate. President Obama says this, nominee should go forward.
Well, and you hear that, and of course you remember that Harry Reid changed the rules a couple of years back when he was there to get some nominations through. So would a Mitch McConnell think about changing those rules on some other issue? I don't know, but I'm sure there will be those who, if the Republicans fail to, support that nominee, that they'll say Republicans are obstructionists. But that is the Constitution. Just because the president puts somebody forward doesn't mean that they automatically have to vote for that person.
Constitutional rights on behalf of the Republican Senate as well.
Absolutely.
The president has every right to nominate.
And the Senate has every right to refuse that nomination.
This matter of the most restrictive immigration laws in America, and Pope Francis' comments about Donald Trump in particular, but,
sure.
but more broadly speaking about the handling of immigration, I guess, around the world, it came as a shock to a great many people that it makes you unchristian if you would want to build a wall in Donald Trump's case. React to the comments.
Well, of course, that's the Pope's opinion, and, there are certain people who say he shouldn't be allowed to say such things. I heard that on the radio, and I said, he's got freedom of speech. He's got a right to his opinion. On this other side of the coin, we have the right to our opinion. Of course, my opinion is that we protect our country first and foremost. And I actually had a phrase I had coined about the president's illegal amnesty from 2 years ago. And my phrase is, it's time to put America first. We pay attention to our country, do what's best for our country. We've got hurting people in our country. We talked a little bit about the oil industry, refining industry being down. We've got things in this country that need to be fixed, and we just can't invite anybody and everybody over and say take advantage of the system, get health care, get welfare, get food stamps, get free medical, that health care. And so it's time to put our country first, and for the Pope to somehow insinuate because we think about our country first, that Donald Trump, in this case, is non-Christian, I think is pretty much a stretch.
Is a stretch on the part of the Pope to say un-Christian. Donald Trump went so far as to say that the Pope's comments were disgusting. He used that word and said that this is not I guess the place of the Pope to say. When how do you see the ball of wax there?
Well, of course, most people, I guess Catholics in particular, view the Pope as their spiritual leader here on earth, and a lot of people say head of the largest church in the world, church organization in the world. He's not a politician, although some would argue when he came to speak to the joint session of Congress, he certainly acted as a politician, titled his opinion. He can say whatever he wants to, but I think that he's best off left to heading up the Catholic Church and let the American politicians take care of the American people.
I got you. Okay, and I'm glad you mentioned the refinery business because the industry's, in this sort of area where with the crude oil prices down as far as they are, it's good to see that you've got that on your radar, and and that when some of our workers are being laid off and all, it's good to see that you're thinking in those terms. And it's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. We appreciate it. We're going to return on Southeast Texas Weekly in just moments with our regular panel. Be sure and stay with us.
Get ready, Texas.